Check that out, ladies and gentlemen. That is Joe Gransden that we have on right now at his 16-piece big band that he's got going on. Jazz group that is unbelievable, and we've got Joe joining us right now. I got the fortunate enough to play golf with him last week before the tournament started, and Joe not only is unbelievably good at music, and we're going to talk to him about the music, but he also lives there in the community where the Tour Championship is in Eastlake and everything about it. And Joe, playing golf with you, I couldn't believe it. I gave you a couple tips on the front nine. And on the back nine, you're going to play Scotty G straight up. You're giving away 3 shots, and you beat him.
Man, you hooked me up. You hooked me up, man, and it worked. And I'm still doing it, man. And I've been to the range, and I'm trying it. You're a pro.
Oh, but you know what? I told you right when we first started playing, I go, man, your swing is really, really good, and your handicap is dictated basically on your lack of play, not on your lack of talent. Because there's plenty of people that play golf that have no talent whatsoever, and they can still play this game at a pretty decent level. But for you, it's basically time. And you know, with what you do for a living, you're playing all the time at night. You got days off, but you also got family. And that makes it kind of tough, doesn't it?
It makes it real tricky. It does. But, you know, a lot of my gigs and a lot of my performances around the country, I kind of try to work in some golf while I'm there. But you know how it is. You show up and you go to the first tee. I never leave enough time to stretch and warm up properly and get some rhythm happening. So I love the game, though. I've always loved it. We do our stretching. Bourbon flask, we're good to go, right? That's stretching. Yeah, I'm stretching something.
Couple Advil, right. We're good to go. I got to ask you. I mean, you've been doing this for a long, long time. You're in the music business. I got to meet your dad, Bob. What an unbelievably cool guy. And I know that's kind of probably where your footsteps fell because of what he was doing. But what really made you stay with it for as long as you have?
The music? Oh,
yes.
Man. I knew at 10 years old what I was doing the rest of my life. My grandfather played trumpet with the bands of Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey and Harry James. He's from New York City. My father plays the piano. I grew up, it was in my house. And like I said, man, I don't know. It's just something clicked at around 10 years old. I fell in love with the sound of the trumpet. I didn't start singing until much later. But I knew. I've always known. And it was a great feeling to know where your heart is. And it's still on fire just as much today as it was back then.
Talk a little bit about that, because all these guys on the PGA Tour, I knew, at 13 or 14 that I just absolutely loved the game of golf, and I was completely dedicated to it. Getting on the PGA Tour is an aspiration and a dream, but I knew it was going to be a part of my life somehow, some way. Yeah, you might want to take it to the pinnacle, but there was no way that golf wasn't going to be a part of my life. And for you and the music, I mean, when I first met you and like 2 holes in, I go, man, this guy's got an old soul. That's what this jazz and where it comes from. It's there. It's in your heart. It's in your blood, isn't it?
It really is. And early on in my life, I wanted to be a pro hockey player. I'm from New York City, and then I grew up most of my childhood in Buffalo, New York. And we all played hockey, and I didn't really like playing in the band. I had a trumpet. I chose that instrument. But one day my father came home with a Chet Baker vinyl record and gave it to me, and I put it on the record player. And, man, it's just like, I don't know what happened, but I listened to side A of that thing, got my horn out, sat on my bed and tried to copy this guy. And from then on, it was almost like a drug addiction. I almost didn't do homework. I almost practiced too much that I learned I learned some bad habits that I had to relearn later because I would play too much and not give my muscles a rest, not give my chops a rest. But it was on fire.
That is so cool. Joe Gransden joining us right now. Big band, playing jazz all over the country. Got a new CD out. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I got to talk to you because you live in that Eastlake area, and that's really why I really wanted you on the show more than anything. You're a great guy, and I love the music. I have never been to a jazz club in my entire life. When I went that night, it touched me big time. I mean, it was really, really awesome. But you have moved into the Eastlake area with your family and what they've done there. Talk a little bit about that. We were talking before it started about the high school they've got there and everything else, but that community is now, Eastlake has kind of become a model for many, many towns throughout the country and trying to change the inner city and really get these cities to get a rebirth and growth.
Yeah, that's very true. My wife and I moved there, I think, in about 2008. We lived not far from there for years. You know, coming from New York City, I was depressed when I first moved to Atlanta because nobody walked anywhere, and in New York we walk everywhere. So somebody suggested Decatur, Georgia, which is a nice walking area. So we lived there for a while, and then Eastlake just kept calling my name. My wife is a music educator and is always helping out kids, and I'm a jazz musician and a jazz educator. And we just saw what was going on with the Drew Charter schools, what Tom and Ann Cousins were doing. My friends Billy Andrade and Stuart Sink have been kind enough to put me in their tournament at Eastlake every year, so I was around a lot of the Eastlake members and folks there, and I just fell in love with it, man. I mean, I could almost walk to the course. I probably live 3/4 of a mile away. We've been there for a while now, and probably will never leave. There's great restaurants. There's all kinds of wonderful people and a great mix of people. You know, once again, living in New York City, right, you got people from all over the world, and we have that in Eastlake, and we're just so proud to say that we live there.
You just mentioned Billy Andrade and Stuart Sink. Isn't that event coming up?
That event's coming up this weekend. I get to play, thanks to Billy and Stuart, I get to play in the Eastlake Invitational, which actually benefits the Eastlake Foundation and the First Tee programs, and they'll raise a lot of money this coming weekend, and they've put me in it, I guess, for the past 6 or 7 years, and I get to walk those same fairways that Tiger and all the greats walked just a week ago. I can't wait, man. I'm super, super excited.
That is so cool. And Joe, you know, I know you're younger than me, barely. No, you're definitely younger than I am. But you've got, like I said, you've got that old soul, and there's a lot of people out there listening to us right now that, you know, might be listening to the Golf Channel, but they love the Sinatra Channel too, and they love this kind of music. How can people get a hold of you? Where can they find out information on your concert? And you've got your new CD out. You got a little Kenny G happening with you a little bit, helped you out on it too. Give these people some info, please.
Yeah, that's kind of you to mention that, man. I have a website, joegransden.com, and like most of us out there, I have a Facebook page. It's all under my name, Joe Gransden, and our schedule's there. And our new CD is called Go Get It, and we're very, very proud to have Kenny G playing tenor sax on it. He takes a wonderful solo. And you know, I met Kenny through playing golf, and I met Billy through playing golf, and all these wonderful connections that I've made in my career have come from this sport that I fell in love with. And, you know, I can't say enough about the sport and what it's taught me and the patience it's taught me. And I don't get mad anymore, Dennis. I don't know if you noticed that the other day.
Right.
But I stopped getting angry, and I just love being out there and swinging that golf club, you know.
Well, the thing that I think is so neat is we got playing golf together a couple weeks ago, just before the Tour Championship, and you mentioned the fact that, well, I think Scotty actually mentioned the fact that didn't you play golf with you know, Clint? And I said, no, I didn't play with him. I got to meet Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner one evening with my mom and my wife, and they were like shell shocked. And you're pretty good friends with Clint. And was that through golf too, or was it? How did that relationship get started?
That started through music. He heard one of my CDs 15 or 16 years ago and liked the way it sounded and hired me to play a party at his golf club in California called Tehama. And when I got there, I got to play golf with him that day. And I'll never forget, he's twice my age, but we had the same thing in common, music. In fact, he knew all my heroes. He knew Miles Davis and Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Chet Baker. So we had this great thing in common. And over the years, he kept hiring me to play events. And eventually he put me in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am back in 2006 or 7. I almost made the cut too, but that's where I met Billy, and we've struck up a great relationship, and Kenny G and all these wonderful people. But Clint himself is one of my favorite people in the world, extremely down to earth. And I just saw him here in Atlanta. He's here quite a bit now filming movies, and just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And
you've got a heck of an imitation for him too. You've been around him enough. It's great. The mouth doesn't move, and it's slow. It's like,
yeah. He's got that
He's
voice.
Awesome. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I got to tell you, I think it was so fitting when Scotty told me about you and what was going on with the music and the fact that you live in Eastlake, that it just kind of comes full circle, and that there are successful people living in what is a successful rebirth of an incredible neighborhood that used to be one of the finest neighborhoods when the golf course was first built in the entire country. And it's neat to see that happening and how much you love being in that area.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful thing. And you know, Scotty Goldfuss has become a great friend of mine, and you've been mentioning him. He talks so highly about you, and to get on the golf course, I was super nervous playing golf with you, and thanks for being so patient with me and giving me those tips. It really did help, man.
Well, buddy, I'll tell you what. For a 12 handicap, shoot 39 at on the back nine there at Setting Down Creek, which is not an easy golf course. I was really impressed. You figured it out pretty nice. Not to mention the fact that you were driving it by me. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
No, I don't know about that, but I will tell you that you telling me to keep my head straight and not sway. There was a few swings there that felt easy, and they went further than the swings when I was swinging hard. I mean, it just felt so easy once you gave me that tip. I mean, of course, I still hit some horrible shots, but there was a handful of them that I just felt like, man, this is the way it should feel, you know?
Well, when you restrict that right hip a little bit, when you're a flexible guy and you turn into it, and now you've got a base to push off of, you don't feel like you're doing much at all because you had a lot going on, and trying to find the bottom coming so far off the golf ball is really hard to do. When you figured that out, it was pretty easy because your swing's on plane. You're just fighting it because you were moving around too much. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Take care,
You
Dan.
got it. Not a problem. Joe Gransden, 16-piece band, really, really good. You can check him out at Joe Gransden, GRANSDEN.com, and check out his music. It's really, really good. It was really neat to be a part of that. I've been a music guy my whole life, just kind of, being a rocker. And then I got into country, and to be able to go to his jazz show that I think it was on a Monday or Tuesday night that I went to right in that general area. It was really incredible. It was fun to hear this 16-piece orchestra. It really, really was good. And we're going to get out of here, this segment, with a little bit of this. How about My Way from Joe Gransden as we head on out. More with Inside the Ropes when we return.
But through it all, when there was doubt